Yes, indeed. Nitro's the glory, but E-Buggy pays the bills. Had you told me back in episode 12 that I'd still be saying these words like 200 more times, I would have thought you would have been crazy. But in this NNRC replay, I go back to the Mark Pavidis interview, episode 12. I think this had to be early 2019 that I did this. Still feeling my way out with interviewing people, still getting confident. I was still kind of feeling my way out, I guess you would say, interviewing people, finding my voice, because I tried to hide my accent a lot, because my Bermudian accent, sometimes I talk too fast. Even now, I'm not talking in my full Bermudian accent. But it was so great to have Mark on. He was a legend. He was a guy that I read about in magazines at this time. I had never met him at a race at this time. You got to remember, I did go. I hadn't even been to DNC 2018. So this was before that. No, sorry. Correction. This was DNC 20. This had to be DNC 2019 that I was going to. I had been to DNC 2018. Yeah, I had to think just now because yeah. Anyway, so this was DNC 2019 that I did finally get to meet him, I believe. And I remember he was driving in his car, driving through the mountains. It was not that good of a signal. I wasn't really good at processing audio. I remember the volume being really low for people, so I wanted it to, I've always thought that it was a great interview, but the audio wasn't great. And I was able to process it, put it in my magic audio processor, and it came out okay. It's still, you can hear that he's on a phone and he's driving in a car. But I think this is also another person that I need to revisit. He's also one person that I heard Greg talk about highly all the time. He says, yes, he was a rival, but he was also one of the best, if not the best he's ever seen. And you can hear, like, I got to see Greg and Mark interact at the recent Worlds in last year in Redovan, and you can see the mutual respect that they both had for each other, I think, after all these years. And it's funny because Mark came up to me and is like, you know what, Lefty, I really do like your podcast, and I listen to them all, and I think I'm pretty good friends with his son, Ryan, who I think is extremely talented. And when he said that to me, I just remember saying, wow, really? Somebody like you, like a legend like yourself, listens to what some idiot from Bermuda has to say who talks too much. But really good interview with him. We need to get him back on. He's going to a lot more races with Ryan now. He was at the Worlds. They gave him a special ceremony as well, like they were introducing all the world champions from the past. So that was pretty cool. But definitely somebody I would like to revisit. He talks about his departure from AKA. He had not started. I don't think he started working for Hot Race yet. I can't remember. But I hope you guys enjoy it. Remember, he was driving in a car while doing this. So the audio that's exactly what the audio sounds like. We did clean it up a little bit, but it's and boost the audio the volume so you can hear it a little bit better. But here is the episode 12 interview with Mark Pavidis. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And we need to get him on the podcast again. What do you guys think? Anyway, let's get over to Mark.
So what's up, guys? Welcome to the No Name RC podcast, episode 12, Legends of RC. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Pavidis here with us today, 2006 8-scale world champion. What's up, Mark? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. How's things in California today?
It's a cool 82 degrees and no humidity.
Okay, that's good. How do you think the weather's going to be around DNC time next month?
February typically is a little bit of a wetter month for California, and where the DNC is, that area tends to get pretty cold in the evenings.
Okay.
So, but the race started out in Hemet, California, and so where the event's taking place this year is not too far from its origin.
Okay. So. That should be cool. In case you guys don't know who Mark Pavidis are, you're probably living under a proverbial RC rock. But he's a multiple time world champion in 10 scale. Well, he won 10 scale in 1995 four-wheel drive tramp, 2006 8 scale off-road championship in Jakarta, and he's also a 10 scale on-road champion. Multiple, I think, 2-time Reedy Race champion and on-road champion, and multiple national titles and probably multiple big race wins that we can't even name. But if you don't know who he is, then you guys will know at the end of this podcast. So I don't know, man. I don't really want to dwell too much on your early years, but I did read the other day in your biography that you got started with a Tamiya car at a track in Costa Mesa. How did that come about?
Yeah, so my dad at the time, we were looking to do a hobby together, and we went to the local hobby store, and at the time, RC cars really weren't super popular. This is probably 2, maybe 3 years before the RC10, really came out. And anyway, so my dad, he was in the Navy, and he really wanted to get an RC airplane. So we went to the hobby store. He got an RC airplane, and at that time, you don't buy an RC airplane and then 30 minutes later, it's in the air. Back in those days, you have to build everything that you had, right? So it took him a few months to build it, and we went to the flying field, and it took him a few seconds to crash it.
No way.
So, yeah. So, back then, I was like, oh, all of this hard work is gone. I was like 6, 7, I'm crying. Like, this isn't any fun. So we went back to the hobby shop. My dad went to get another airplane, and that's kind of when I saw the cars under the counter there. And so my first true car, was a Super Champ, Tamiya Super Champ.
Okay. And you raced at a track in Costa Mesa. What track was that?
It was called RCH, and at the time, they had a small little retail shop on 19th Street in Costa Mesa, and a little outdoor track, a little dirt area in the parking lot there, and people would pull up, pop their hoods, hook up their chargers to the car battery, charge their batteries, and then race. So that was kind of, my first local track experience was RCH in Costa Mesa.
Okay. Did you ever meet Jay Smoker in those times? That's his neighborhood around there, and he keeps...
Yeah, that's his neighborhood, but I never ran into him.
Okay, crazy. He tells me all the time that he invented Truggy. I got to get him here on the podcast. I'll be seeing him soon anyway when we get to California. Yeah. So after you got in, you started racing. How did it progress from there? How did you get your first sponsorships? Like, what was your timeline pretty much like?
I spent the first, I'd say probably 3 years, just kind of doing RC, not really competing at a high level. It was more just for fun, and you'd build jumps in your backyard or race it down the street. And then there was a local indoor track, pretty much the first local indoor track in Southern California. It was called Hot Tracks. And it was a really small indoor track, not very big at all. But anyway, you'd go there, and back when we all had wiper arm speed controls, and you'd show up, and I remember that was the first time I saw Jay Halsey and his dad. They just won the World Championships not too long after I started racing, and I was like, oh, that's the guy that won that race, and he's got his standing next to his car and all that stuff. And so anyway, one thing led to another, and I started racing, and then more and more, and I got a job at the local track, which was Hot Tracks at the time, and just helping them, get the track ready for the next night's racing, and anyway, kind of, because a lot of the RC industry was in Southern California, that was their local go-to track. So I got in touch with Mike Reedy through the hobby shop, and one of the events, he gave me a modified motor to try out. Just no sponsorship, but he just said, hey, give this a try. why don't you try modified some night at your local race? And I think it was 1988. I ended up entering the Reedy race, which was the very first Reedy race at Hot Tracks. It was the year that Chris Moore won, I believe. Chris Alec, he won the invitational class, and I made the D main. And during my D main, I ended up crashing or something, and the magnet and the motor fell out. And Mike came over, saw that I had this issue, and he gave me a brand new motor.
Really?
Just so I could keep racing.
That's
racing.
Cool. That's cool.
So, yeah.
Very cool.
So that's kind of the guy that Mike Reedy was, and yeah, he's really the one that kind of got me to that next level in racing, because I couldn't afford to race all the time, and so we kind of got to know each other, and through the hobby shop, and a few months more went by, and I won a couple local. Just local events that they'd have there, in the stock class. And that's when Mike kind of offered me a very small sponsorship, some tires and wheels and, a couple parts, but nothing, no car kits or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of how it evolved. And then eventually, from there, I worked for Cliff Lefty in his garage packaging turnbuckles. And then eventually, ended up working at Associated part-time during high school.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, because we're talking about Reedy, and the Reedy race is going on at the moment. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you worked with Cliff let packaging turnbuckles then to Associated. So I'm guessing Cliff took you with you when he went to work for Associated?
Yeah, so even before I started, I was kind of in helping out at the track, and then I was also working part-time on the weekends too at, I don't know, most people might know Hobby Shack or Hobby People.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yep. And they had a hobby store not too far from my house, so I went Hobby Shack, and then part-time at the RC track working, and then worked part-time in Cliff's garage packaging turnbuckles and bodies for RC performance, and then started working part-time after school for Team Associated, which led to a full-time opportunity.
Yeah. So what was your job description at Associated when you went full-time?
Yeah. So when I started there, I was just more or less kind of helping Mike Reedy prepare motors and batteries for events that they were going to go to. And then once I got hired on full time, was kind of about the same time when we started going to more events. So I was also racing. And then when we weren't going to big races, I was working under Mike Reedy, pretty much doing the batteries and, stuff with the motors and pretty much anything that involved Reedy modified.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is like early 90s, I would say, like 90, 91, 89.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And then towards the end of my time there at Associated, it evolved. Racing became more and more of a mainstay, and people were getting paid now to go race full time. So it became more of an R&D position towards the end of my time at working more under Cliff West at Associated.
Okay. So now you're moving to, when you went from the R&D, when do you start becoming like Mark Pavidis professional racer? And that's your, like, pretty much your whole job.
Yeah, I mean, I never, during my whole career, RC racing career, I never just RC raced. I always RC raced, and when I went back, I'm an employee at Associated. So I was never like the guys now. They're just RC racers. They're they're contracted RC racers that they get paid to go to the track and produce results. They don't want them coming in and pulling orders or answering the telephone. They're strictly paid to go racing.
Okay, so you always had a real job per se,
Correct.
along with racing. So when did you actually start? I would say traveling more and racing more than I'm guessing they actually sent you out to race a lot more once obviously once you started getting results. So I'm guessing getting time off from work to race and whatnot was not an issue. So
no, it wasn't. It wasn't an issue. So it'd be like the guys now, the Cavaliers, the Tebos, Mayfield. So same thing for me. Any big event, I'd go to. But if there's any downtime when there's no event, then that's when I would be at work.
Okay. Did you still do a lot of club racing on the weekends and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, usually I'd go race once, maybe twice a week back then.
All right. You was busy, dude. That's a lot of that. Well, I guess that's what you have to do to become the best, don't you?
Yeah, it was busy. I mean, of course, all of this was pre any type of girlfriend or any kids or family or anything like that. So, it was just me. I didn't have to worry about anyone else until kind of later in my career is when I started, I had a wife, I had a family. So, but all in the early stages, it was a lot of traveling.
So when did you win your first of your Reedy races? What year was that?
That's a good question. A long time ago. Like
the 90s? Before your first world championship in 95?
Yeah, maybe it was probably all around that time.
Mm-hmm. So being as you came up racing fully in the 90s, let's talk about a little bit about RC in the 90s, 10 scale and 8 scale. I'm pretty sure 10 scale was king in this time, but 8 scale started to come around as well, right?
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. 8 scale starts coming around, and then I love just the gas side of it, and I was never around it getting into the RC stuff just because it was always not very reliable. That was kind of the whole gas thing. That's what it was known for. It's cool, but yeah, it lasts 5 minutes or breaks down, but kind of about the time I was getting into it, it started to gain a lot of traction, and the cars were more reliable. The engines were really good. And you can go and compete at these races, and your stuff wasn't falling apart or shutting off. So it became really fun. It was a whole nother side of RC racing that I'd never seen before, and it really intrigued me.
Yeah. What year was that? Was that when gas truck really started to take off? Because a lot of these guys, a lot of these guys that I talked to, I done one with Tebow. Degani always says it too. Like that's Saxton said it. It was like back then, 8 scale was second and gas truck was king. So
very true.
And it was like if you can wheel a gas truck with you guys, because you was like one of the names that was brought up as like one of the guys that were to beat back in the day. You, Matt Francis, obviously who else? I think Quartz was mentioned in there. A lot of the old school guys, Saxton. So when did that? I kind of asked this to Saxton too. When did the shift start ultimately from 10 scale to 8 scale predominantly? Like 10 scale gas truck, to 8 scale car.
Back when gas trucks kind of was taking off, that's when the manufacturers, both Lefty, Associated, and even Kyosho at the time, they were all producing these gas trucks or developing them, and they were all American made, at the time. So, except for the Kyosho one, but it really drove the companies here to have some type of gas off-road vehicle, and the U.S. companies, Lefty or Associated, they didn't want to pursue the 8-scale market because it wasn't big enough. But at the time, you go to these big races and you just don't want to run one class. So what happened was we ended up getting a hold of the 8-scale manufacturer. And for me at the time, it was Mugen. And I got a hold of them, and, they don't know any of us over here at the time. And I said, hey, I'm Mark Pavidis. race here in the U.S., and they can barely understand me because I'm calling Japan. And they decided, okay, we'll send you something, and then their U.S. distribution was just starting up at the same time, so got a car, and yeah, so that's kind of how things kind of paralleled at the events, that I had a gas truck that was my main priority, and then this 8-scale car to kind of fill in the time, the downtime.
What was your first Mugen car? Was it the Super Athlete?
Yeah, Super Athlete.
So the engine was on the other side and whatnot. That's pretty cool.
The engine was the opposite side. The gas tank was in the rear, the left rear, I believe. And then, backwards, the spur gear was in the very back by the rear transmission. And
wow, that's cool.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, that's people wouldn't even remember that type of stuff. Well, these kids nowadays, they wouldn't. Did you even have a starter box back then, or do you have to bump start it?
Yeah, it was a starter box.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So as we progress into the 2000s, 10 scale starts to pretty much die, I would say. When would you say that 10 scale electric kind of just died?
10 scale electric?
Yeah, it died for a while when 8 scale became king. I would like early 2000s.
Yeah.
It wasn't as popular as it was in the 90s, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, the tracks were kind of in a limbo state. I mean, 8 scale at the time was just, it just drew in so many more people. And I think from the aspect that you have the sound, you're at these big outdoor events, it's shooting dirt up in the air. Like, I mean, there's something that you can kind of relate to, where the 10 scale stuff at the time just became kind of boring. You have to cut the motor, the brushes, and all the work involved. Racing back then was a lot of work. Where you go 8 scale racing and you fill it up, you just keep running. And it wasn't until all the brushless stuff and LiPo batteries in 10 scale really turned 10 scale around, but
yeah, but like in the 2000s, I would say that's when truck started to die. Truggy took over, and then I mean, I would say, I would say from 2000 and I would say from when Richard had the Worlds in 2000 in Vegas up until it's still big. Somebody was arguing with me the other day, saying Nitro is dying, and I'm just like, no, I don't think it's dying. I just think e-buggy's growing, obviously because of LiPo, like you said, LiPo and brushless technology, and of course 10 scale. But Nitro is never going to die. Right. I don't think. So
every event I've been to, I mean, it's hard to say, oh, Nitro's dead. I mean, a lot of it is just kind of due to the nature of the industry that we see, as far as sales go. But when you go to these events, I mean, they're all jam-packed.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
It is. I mean, we're going after the SIC race was this weekend, and it had like 500 and something entries, but I would say maybe 350 people, I think it was there, close to that. So it's still really jam-packed. So after you left Mugen, then I'm taking it. Sorry, I'm just jumping back to 2000s and 8 scale. That's that was when you kind of went to Kyosho. After Mugen was Kyosho, correct? Because it was only Mugen and Kyosho back in the day, really.
Yeah. It was, end of the 90s, early 2000 there. I think the Worlds in Las Vegas was in 2000. So, that was kind of my first Worlds with a Kyosho car.
Yeah. How did that go for you?
It was good. I think we TQ'd every round of qualifying by either 6 to 10 seconds every round. And, it was the first time that the European drivers came over and kind of experienced a more American-style 1/8 scale world. Mm-hmm. So it really suited the U.S. type style driving. And then back then the top qualifier was direct into the final. So I didn't get to go on the track at all until the day of the final, until the final started.
Really? And no practice?
Yeah, no practice. And I think I got to run in one of the semi practices back then. Now that I think about it, but I didn't get to do any racing. It was a very limited amount of time on the track. And that kind of hurt me a little bit. And then it got into my head, and then, I got into the main started, and then just one mistake after another. And yeah, long story short, I think I finished 4th.
Yeah. Well, that's not bad. I mean, fourth is still good, but obviously you wanted to win. That's the one Kanai won. Who was on the podium that year? Do you remember?
I think it was Daniel Reckward and maybe Miguel Matias.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Dude, Miguel's been racing forever too, dude. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So, yeah, there's a lot of worlds where I've been extremely close, and it never happened.
Yeah, how about Uruguay when Dagani won?
Yeah. I think he sabotaged me.
Do tell me that story, because I like to bust his balls every once in a while.
No, he drove good. I know everyone thinks Greg Dagani, but, I mean, you know what? I mean, you can talk all the smack you want, but, I mean, he had his program down. I mean, he drove well. His car didn't fall apart. He was consistent. And in 8 scale, if you're consistent and you don't have any problems, your likelihood of doing well, I mean, you just raise the stakes. I mean, so that's what he did. He made sure that his car didn't fall apart, that his engine stayed running, and he stayed on all 4 tires. And that's what he did. And he did a really good job of doing it and ended up winning. Yeah. Everyone else had problems.
Yeah. I remember watching that. Well, I shouldn't say watching. I remember getting live posts about that Worlds on the starting grid when you guys were down there. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So in 2004 was in Sweden. I should have done my research, but I can't remember where you finished there. I know that track was very difficult. I remember, lots of pebbles getting into flywheels. Guys had to put like Lexan shields on their chassis to stop that. And was that another one you felt that kind of got away? I can't remember if you.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I finished 4th there too. But yeah, I mean, the one to beat was Michael Paulson. That was his home track, and that track layout at the time it stayed in. It never changed. It never varied. We went over to the warm-up to test on it, and it was a difficult track to go fast on because it was a very high-speed track. Tip from what a lot of us U.S. drivers, you go down the straightaway to 180, you slow down, turn, and you accelerate to the next corner, brake, turn again. Well, in Europe, you stay on the gas. You're not braking, you're not slowing down. You're trying to carry as much speed around these high-speed corners. So it was a lot different style of driving than what we were used to. And so we went to the warm-up, and we learned a lot, and ended up coming back, and we were competitive, and we were fighting for top qualifier with Yannick Agwan. And I think we tied on points, or he got me by 1 point or something. So it was super close.
Yeah. Then he got DQ'd for like 0.5 cc or something like that. That was crazy.
Yeah, something crazy.
Yeah. I remember watching that Worlds as well, man. It was pretty. I think that track still has that M-shaped uphill section, and I think it's AstroTurf now, if I'm not, or grass or something, but it's still almost exactly the same as it was in 2004. That's the one that Guilliman Ray won. He came out of nowhere to win that one. Yeah. Pretty cool. So then we go into 2006 in Jakarta, and a lot of people didn't go to this. This is the one that a lot of people didn't go to because they were scared to go to Indonesia, correct?
Yeah. I mean, at the time there was some bombings going on. Then I want to say that there was they had the big tsunami there not too long before we were there. But it was on the other side. It was on the other side of Indonesia. But still, I've been to so many places traveling for RC, and everyone says, well, LA's, people that aren't from LA or come in. They're like, oh, I don't know if I'd go there. They think of Compton or what they see in the movies, and I go, well, of course, every town, every state, country, they all have their bad places. But so anyway, we went to Jakarta. We were meted with one of the representatives from the track. They were there at customs to pick us up. I mean, everything was really well taken care of, and the hotel and the place where the event was amazing. I've never been to a world that was that nice.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple of times from the people that did go.
Yeah. John Angus, he still races. He was the one that kind of put on the event, and he and his staff did an amazing job.
So
the banquet for the final was on a beach.
Really?
With like tiki torches, and it was really cool.
That's cool, man. People, I agree with you on that. I live in the Dominican Republic, and people's like, "Oh, it's so dangerous down there." I'm like, "Yeah, every place is dangerous, but I love it there." So I don't worry about the dangerous part. I just keep on going.
Yeah.
So this is the Worlds in Jakarta. Now here's because obviously I talk to Dagani a lot, and this is the one that he says he almost won. He said Yannick Aiguan broke, then he came in, and then he broke like half an hour into it, and then you won it. Or was it? I think that's how he explained it to me. So you tell me about this race, because I always I like to get Dagani, and catch him out and see what I can say to him next time I see him. So tell me about your experience during that race.
So that race, I was top qualifier. So, but then now we're going back a few years from when I top qualified in Las Vegas to top qualifying in Jakarta. And now IFMAR changed the rules. So now the top qualifier has to race his way into the final.
Mm-hmm.
So I started first, and I had a few issues, but I wasn't really too concerned about it. I go, you know what? You don't have to win. Don't break your car. Let's make the final. Don't try to finish in the back, but let's try to get a decent starting spot for the final. So that's what I did. I didn't really push it too much. We ended up, I think, getting second or third in the semi, so we started third in the final. And but once the main started, the track was really blown out, and everyone was making mistakes. And I happened to fly off the track the very first lap, but I told myself, like, this is the one, you got to do it. You can't give up. And I was so far back, but everyone was having problems. So I slowly started catching up, and I don't remember what happened to Greg Degani. I just remember the last maybe 25 minutes is Yannick was in the lead, and he ended having an issue, whether it was his engine or the marshal turned,
The marshal cut him out or something, I think. That's what Degani said.
Yeah. So he was out, and he had a fairly decent lead. So now I think Scott Hughes was in the lead, or Gilliam Bray. So they were bouncing back the lead back and forth. And I knew that they kept saying my lap times, and they were so much faster than those other guys. And we ended up doing one less pit stop than most of the guys too in the final, which allowed us to catch even further back. And so that's how we ended up coming back. And I passed Scott was in the lead, I think, with 5 minutes to go, and I passed him. And then he made a couple mistakes, and I was like, wow, this is it. And we came coming across the finish line. If you ever watch the video, I can't even drive my car straight. I'm so nervous. And I get kind of stuck on this like concrete barrier. And all I could think about is this thing is going to shut my engine off. So I just held it wide open, and it came off kind of the curb. And then I ended up crossing the line. And once I crossed the line, I didn't even see my car. I just looked down to Kevin Sharp and Mike Craddock, who are pitting me. And I tossed down the radio. Like, I just tossed it. I was like, that's it. We won it. And Kevin looks up, and same with Mike Craddock. And Mike Craddock just happens to look up at the same time, and it's like right in his face, but he caught it, you know, and he was all worried about driving it because he didn't want to get us penalized. So
yeah, that must have been. He actually sent me that video of when he caught it, and that's pretty cool. I mean, I was reading like you consider that your biggest win in RC. So, do you still to this day consider it your biggest win?
Yeah, I really do, because I think anyone that's raced 8-scale really knows that it's a challenge. There's so many things that have to go right in order to win. And I've been close before, like very close, but nothing went right. And even though during the Jakarta race that I won, there was a few things that went wrong that I noticed, but for the most part, everything did go right. And everything didn't go exactly right for second or third, you know, or, you know, Yannick, he was leading the race and he had a problem. So anything can happen. And when you win one and be close like that, I mean, it just makes you feel that much better, you know, to accomplish that goal. So
that's awesome. I remember that. I was actually watching a bit of the race on YouTube the other night too, and like it's so weird to see the car. Like I remember that era when the cars had the, you know, the rounded bodies and all that stuff and spoke wheels and whatnot. But very cool. Did you was that your last Worlds that you felt that you was competitive, or?
Yeah, because I knew, and that was the other thing too. I knew if I went to that Worlds in Jakarta, you know, we were starting a family, and at the time, you know, I had 2 young kids, and they were just taking more and more of my time, which is fine, and that's why you have them. So the focus on racing became a little less than 100%, you know? Because when you go racing, if you're not 100% focused on what you're there to do and put in the time to be the best, then it's really, you're just another racer. And I knew that I put a lot of effort into that Jakarta race. Didn't matter if some people win or some people didn't, you know, didn't go. I put in 110%. And I knew that in the future I wouldn't be able to do 110%, you know. Even though I want to do my best, I just knew that was my time, that if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now. So I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, you definitely done it and became the 2nd American world champion. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to move on here. You was Kyosho for a very long time, in the golden era of Kyosho, we like to call it. Why do you think Kyosho was so dominant during this time?
When I came on board, it was kind of strictly 8-scale. They did have a 10-scale program, but it was really, really barbaric. And, you know, 10-scale, or I should say 8-scale, it was Kyosho or Mugen. And Kyosho had such a strong reputation in 8-scale, that if you go 8-scale racing, that's what you get. You get a Kyosho, you know? So when I came on board to race with them, I also came on board to help them develop some 10-scale stuff. So like the RB6, and then like some of the laser platforms, I worked closely with some of their designers and worked on those projects.
Cool. So you was with Kyosho to what year? You started, I would say, what year did you start? Can you remember?
Maybe 99.
Okay, and when did that finish up?
Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe 09 or 10, something like that.
So why did your time at Kyosho end? You just wanted to move on or try something different?
Yeah, so when I was running Kyosho, I was, I was working at Proline, and then I ended up leaving Proline and went to go work for Kyosho. And at the time, Kyosho presented us an opportunity, hey, to start another brand, and the brand being AKA, which was under the Kyosho brand. So when I was working there, they ended up letting me go, along with Gil and everyone else, and that's when AKA became a separate entity from Kyosho. And that's when I decided, you know what, I don't really want to support Kyosho in a way that, since I'm not working for them, it kind of became two separate interests.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to keep it just very focused on just the brand AKA.
Mm-hmm.
And not so much on, okay, do the Kyosho and I'll do the AK thing. So, I left Kyosho, and then I went to go run Losi cars.
Yeah.
So,
What?
yeah.
How did that decision come about to go to TLR?
Just at the time, we had a good relationship with our distributors, and Horizon was a big part of AK, being a distributor of AK, and just a lot of the local guys in the area were running TLR, and it was just an easy fit. They were willing to help me, and we were willing to help their team, supply them with tires for testing and stuff like that. So it was a good fit for the time.
Okay. And now you're retired somewhat, but still running Associated, correct?
Yeah, so my role as a racer became more of a weekend racer, and my son's racing quite a bit now,
mm-hmm.
and trying to, he does quite well, but Associated offered him a really good opportunity with their vehicles, and it was hard for me I would like to see him kind of go back with Associated just because that's where I started, but they truly did offer him a good opportunity, and not to say Losi didn't, but it just seemed a better fit at the time.
Okay. Cool. So we touched on a little bit on how AKA started, and your involvement in AKA through Kyosho, and then eventually you guys just formed. That's going to be one of my next questions. Is everyone thought you was an owner at AKA, but how come you wasn't?
It's a difficult question. So when Kyosho owned AKA, and then the owner of Kyosho decided that, hey, we don't have the funds to keep AK going. It was only a year old, but they couldn't quite see where the company was going at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember Joel went over to a hobby show at the time, and he came back and said, AK is no longer part of Kyosho. Myself and Gil purchased it away from Kyosho.
Okay.
And which was great. I still had a job, but at the same time, I'm a little bit upset, to say the least, that I wasn't given an opportunity
mm-hmm.
to be a part of it when they went ahead and did that. So that was a little bit of a rough area for about a year and a half, 2 years, internally with us at AK. I thought, out of common respect, I think, because we all kind of started AK together, myself, Gil Losi, and Joel Johnson, that I would have been given an opportunity to do so. Instead, it was at the time when I came to them. At the time, I was told that, lucky to have a job. maybe down the road if you buy out someone's shares, something like that. So fast forward a few years later, and I met with Joel and Gil, and Pops offered me his share of AK, but at the time, I looked into it, and it wasn't exactly an equal share. It was part of their share, and there's some other reasons too that I didn't pursue it, which I'm glad I didn't. So
yeah. How about your time there? I'm sure there was some good times. I mean, you guys developed some world championship tires. What did you learn there? Like, and just talk about the good times you did have at AKA.
Yeah, no, I mean, to say it was horrible, I mean, that'd be lying. Yeah, for sure. We had some awesome times, and I think the most exciting part was taking something that was just on more or less an idea on a napkin and developing something here that was made locally in the U.S. and being able to compete against the companies that have been in business for a long time, the Pro Lines, the J Concepts, and basically kind of change the way that these companies market their product, the way that they look at the manufacturing side of their product, because we changed the packaging. At the time, everything was just coming in a bag with a little header card on the top. We were the first ones to do the printed packaging with the nice Ziploc sealed bag. We were the first ones to come out with the molded foam rubber inserts that you see in everyone else's tires now. We were the first ones to bring that to market. There was just a lot of little things, and that's what made AK very successful, especially in the 8-scale market. And, we ended up winning the first world championship with Cody King in Indonesia, in Thailand. And, yeah, it was fun. I mean, there was definitely some good times, for sure.
What do you think, what was AKA's biggest influence on the tire game?
Biggest influence. I would probably have to say that two things. I would say the foam that's being used in the tires today, as well as the city block tire and the way that we made it, the carcass design. It was a great multi-purpose tire at the time. So it was the tire and that foam combo was just great. We sold so many of those tires. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So now we come to your departure from AKA. How did that come about, and what went wrong?
All right, say it again.
Your departure from AKA. How did that come about?
Okay.
What went ultimately wrong to cause that?
Well, I would say probably the last 2 years. I would say now 3 years, being current. But the last 2 years that I worked there, the company, the economy in general was slowing down. Overseas sales were slowing down because the dollar was so strong. So margins were much lower in the product. Just so many things, I don't know one thing to point at, but the company was becoming less and less profitable, and nothing was really done to change with the times. There's that saying, the reason why the dinosaurs went extinct is because they didn't evolve. And when companies don't evolve with changing times, they go extinct, and it's very true. And, to say that I wasn't looking for a job, I mean, you could see the writing on the wall, but I always thought that I would be there until the end, right? Of course, I wanted to have a plan B exit just in case. But yeah, so was about a year or so ago. That's when Joel walked into my office and said, "Hey, we have to let you go." And I was like, "Okay." So I guess
Really?
no one else is going. Like I've been here from the beginning. There's no talk of decreasing salaries. There's no. We decided that we're going to let you go, and that's just not something we can do. So yeah, they let me go.
Wow. Crazy.
And yeah, so Joel was there to let me go. Gil, I never heard from Gil. Gil wasn't there. Pops wasn't there. Just Joel.
Okay.
So when he let me go, it was at the end of the day on a Friday, and I've never been out of a job or laid off or anything like that. So it was kind of an eye opener to me. I guess what was more of an eye opener to me is kind of the way that I was let go, being somebody that started the company. That hey, there's we want to offer you some type of severance package. You've been with us from day one. We want to make it right. It was never offered that way. And the reason why I say that is because we had two other employees that worked for us that did receive some type of severance package.
Really?
And they weren't, they weren't there. They weren't the high profile employee. I mean, yeah, Greg Hodap, he did a lot of work, and when he got let go, he got a severance. Kind of helped him out in between finding another job. And Brent Figge, he when he was gone, he got paid out on all of his vacation time. So, yeah. So when I got let go, I got my last paycheck, and that was it.
Really? That must have been such a shock to you.
So a lot of people don't know that, and so I wasn't very happy about it. Of course, I'm not crying to get my job back or anything like that, but I just wanted to know why it was taken that way, and so it was explained to me that the company has no money, and we have to make sure that the company stays around. And so anyway, that happened on a Friday. I called to speak with Joel on a Monday about some paperwork that I had to fill out being unemployed. And Joel wasn't in the office. He was on a vacation.
Oh, wow. You must have been fuming.
Yeah, I was upset.
I would be upset. I would be upset.
It's fine. He can go on vacation. I'm not saying he can't, but, this was the song and dance from the owners there is that, hey, we have no money. But don't tell me that and then go on vacation the week after, the following week that you let me go.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it looks bad.
Yeah, it's kind of like a slap in the face.
Has no money. Yeah, a slap in the face.
Yeah.
The other slap in the face was like, hey, no type of severance or exiting, payment or just something to say, hey, look, you put in almost 10 years with us and helped us get off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little bit of thanks as we let you go. I'm sorry it didn't work out. So,
Wow.
But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and I ended up hiring an attorney to look at my case because, what AK did for 10 years was they used my name to market AK product, and I wasn't compensated. All I wanted was a job, and, I'm not that person, but, I have a family, and I thought it was worth something that I'm going to fight for. If they want to use my name, then you're going to pay me to use my name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up giving Joel a cease and desist letter, and he offered to put a sticker over my name.
Wow.
Which to me wasn't the right thing to do. And we ended up working things out at the end, so I'm glad we could work on that. But yeah, I would say it didn't go the way that I got let go. I hope that it doesn't happen to anyone like that in our industry. I think, it's a small industry and we need to treat each other respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when Joel sat there and looked me in the eyes and let me go, okay, I accept that. But to me, I think Gil not being there is part of an owner, and because I work so closely with him, and to not be there, not call me, to me really showed the person that he is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine if you want to come on here and have a different story, but that's the way it happened. And I ended up doing some side work a few weeks later for one of our vendors, completely non-RC related. But they were in the rubber industry, and I ended up doing some side work for them. And Gil found out about it, and he texted me about 2 weeks later after I was let go from AK, and offered me some side work if I ever needed it to do some side work for AK.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So how's your relationship with Joe and Gil now? Do you guys speak? Are you, I'm guessing you do see each other at some races.
No, I don't really have a relationship with them. I mean, it really was. I never had an outside of relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more strictly a working relationship. And now that I'm not in the industry anymore, and especially the way that I was treated, I have no desire to talk to them.
I don't blame you. I would be pissed off too.
Yeah.
I don't know them. I can't say anything about them, but I would be pissed off too. Just the way you got let go is pissing me off. Because I've been there. Yeah. I've had that done to me, and I know how it feels.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks. And, a lot of people, they don't know that. They just see the other side of it. And, I think it's common courtesy if I did find another job. Hey, Joel, hey, Gil, I'm going to give you a 2-week notice. I'm not going to just bail out on you guys. But hey, I memean, everyone goes about business differently, and that's how they do business. So,
yeah. I have one more question now. That being as you're out of the tire game and out of the industry, do you think tires are too expensive in our hobby now?
I mean, everything in general to me seems expensive, especially when I have to start paying for it. Mm-hmm. But, it's really the nature of these tracks. The tracks kind of take, they're so high grip now that tires just don't last like they used to, So a set of tires for your car, you're looking at $40, $50. And, that'll last you, depending on track conditions, maybe 20, 30 minutes. Depends. Just depends where you go. But it's hard. It's hard with producing stuff. I mean, everyone's got to make some money. Mm-hmm. Companies have buildings that they have to pay for, employees that they have to feed. It's tough. I get it. But mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the price is what it is. And you truly do get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And all these tire manufacturers now are really making good products. And it's hard. It's hard to say,
I think it's the track. I wouldn't say
it is the track.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that. People want high traction. They want smooth. They don't want to get their cars dirty. I used to always say back in the day, you could run I could run a whole race weekend with a set of crime fighters, on a loamy track that got blown out, and it worked fine. Now you need one runs, and it's insane, the amount of tires and the amount of money I see people putting into tires to race. It's crazy. It's insane. But you want to go fast, you need to have good tires, don't you?
Yep. So, and now that I'm not with AK, my relationship with Proline has really grown, and I'm happy with that. That we kind of came back together, and leaving Proline was honestly one of the hardest things I've ever had to do,
Mm-hmm.
with the exception of getting divorced. I mean, Proline was like family to me, and to leave.
So going back to Proline has done what for you, Mark?
Yeah. So yeah, I've got, since I left AK, I've established a good working relationship with Proline.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard leaving Proline, to say the least. I was, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. So to be back with Proline and Kim and Todd, I'm happy that my son can be racing with Proline and be supported by them.
That's cool. So, life after RC, what are you doing now?
So, when I got let go, I let everyone know, hey, on Facebook or when social media, either at AK, and if they need to reach me, they can reach me here or by my phone. And this one friend, I should say, more or less, that I got to know through RC. He RC'd a little bit, but he owned this company that took Mercedes Sprinter vans and converted them into these ultra high-end outdoor adventure vans.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a really good fit. They offered me a good position and, a design customer relationship role. And so I've been there just over a year now. And wow, their business is just booming. The whole van life experience is pretty crazy.
Yeah, Alex Morelli that owns NDRC has one of those Mercedes box vans, and he had it at the Nationals, and he had that thing on all day, every day. It was pimped out in there. I went in there and saw it. He had the air conditioner on. It was really nice. So I'm glad you're enjoying that, and doing the van life and whatnot. But do you still get a chance to enjoy RC any?
Yeah, so now I'm a little more, I don't take time off to go do it. Obviously, I only have so much vacation time, and I want to spend that, with my family and not so do it at the RC track. So if you do see me at the RC track, it's more of on the local level. So, I'll probably stop by DNC and say hi to everybody and kind of hang out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as taking time to go to these events, probably not.
Yeah. Do you do you go to support Ryan as well, or is he pretty much learned how to do this on his own now?
Yeah, he's learned how to do it on his own. He's been self-supporting his own events, and that's what I wanted him to learn anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't want to be there supporting him, but if I'm doing all the work for him, he doesn't learn anything.
Right. So, do you want him to follow in your footsteps in the industry?
Ryan is so much. I know every parent probably says their kid's so much smarter than the next kid. But Ryan really is a bright kid. He's in AP classes at school and math. The math side of it, I would say he does have to work at it, but it does come easier than it did for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of math he's doing, he's at the highest level in math, and he's only a junior right now. So, which he has one more year left in high school. So, I mean, he's pretty gifted as far as that goes. So I'd like to see him in some type of engineering role but at the end of the day, I'm going to try to support him in whatever he decides to do, and hopefully steer him in the right direction and guide where I can. Okay.
That's cool. Would you, I'm sure he's watched you and he's learned a lot from you as well, and how to maneuver throughout the industry as well. So, I guess it's kind of hard being the son of you. Your name is, well known within the industry. So like everybody's can say, yeah, that's Ryan Pavidis, Mark's son. So he's kind of got to break out and make his own way as well, too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, Yeah, at first we started off with a similar paint scheme, like, oh, look, it's kind of similar, but we changed. But now he's kind of determined that he wants his own paint scheme and his own colors, and which is good. He's self-identifying himself, and he's also self-identifying himself at the racetrack with his own race results. So it's good.
Okay. What advice do you have for parents with kids in RC? There's a lot of kids, a lot of parents out there taking their kids out of school, homeschooling them, and making them do RC, hoping that they're going to be the next big thing. And you know how hard that is to be in RC. What advice do you have for them?
I think it's a horrible decision. I think it's easy to look short term and see what's in front of you. But to have no work experience or education of how things are done, and just be the RC racer, then at some point RC racing doesn't last forever. I think you're starting to see some of these top pros, they're past their hump, and they all have families now and getting bigger, and I personally don't like the idea of kids going racing full time or being homeschooled, but once you're 18, you can do whatever you want, I guess, right?
But
there's a lot of people out there that, like successful racers, that raced for a while and raced during college, and they were still fast. They might not have gone to all the big races, but at the end of the day, they did well, and they made a name for themselves. Barry Pettit's won. There's so many kids that were fast that go to school.
Yeah, it is a lot of kids like that. Do you miss working in the industry at all?
Yeah, to say no, I'd be lying. I do miss it. Yeah, Ryan was doing the last few hours of practice there, and I haven't seen a lot of the guys since I left today. And run into them was cool, and you miss that. I miss the competitive part of it for sure.
Yeah.
It's been a huge part of my life.
Would you if you was offered a job back in the industry, would you take it again?
It would have to be the right job, but I'm pretty happy where I'm at. No job is absolutely perfect. They all have their issues, but yeah.
Okay.
It's possible. I wouldn't count it out, but
anything's possible, dude. I always say Dagani was really smart. He did it as a pro racer, but he also had a backup job at the same time outside of RC. So,
right.
Doing his clock repairs or whatever he does, which is pretty cool too. Right. All right. I know you're almost home. So, and the internet's getting a little bit wonky. But what about the state of RC? Having worked in the industry, I'm a big proponent of RCGP. What do you think about something like RCGP? Do you think it's needed in the industry?
I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I haven't really read too much about it, but RC, to see these drones flying around and this and that, and they get airtime on ESPN and stuff like that. Like, I get it because it's kind of a video game, like a gamer would get that sense of it. But the one thing that RC, to me, RC car racing is way better than watching drones fly around. And then, you can't even, I don't get the whole drone thing, but, I get it from the aspect that it's cool, like when you're watching it in the headset or whatever, but to watch them race, like, I don't get it, RC racing, to me, if it was presented the right way, could bring so much more value, I think, than these drone races. But it needs to be presented in the right way. And, one thing that we do right now, we have these week-long events that there's no way that any TV coverage is going to cover these events, So these races need to be shorter, and they need to be streamlined and have no issues, and entry limits possibly if they want to do TV time or something like that. But I think if the right person comes in and it's presented the right way, then I think there's room for it to take off.
If you was working in the industry at the moment, would you encourage your company to get involved in this, in RCGP?
Our company really doesn't have.
No, I mean in your company, like if you was working in the industry, say you was working for Proline, would you encourage them to get into involved with RCGP?
Well, like I said, I don't know that much about it, other than they're trying to bring it more mainstream. That's really all I know about it. I haven't really dove too far into it. I mean, it sounds like it's a good thing, but again, I don't know that much about it. So for me to voice my opinions on it would be, no value.
Well, I do appreciate this, Mark, but we have just 2 more segments to do. And I have a segment that's actually, I have to do my introduction for it because it's actually a sponsored segment. And it's 10 questions in 10 seconds. I'm basically ask you 10 questions. You have to answer off the top of your head. So I'll just do my introduction, and after that, I have a few questions that some guys on Facebook have asked on our No Name RC podcast page. So I'm going to do my introduction for this, and then I'm going to start on the questions. So, Hey guys, we got Mark Pavidis here, and this is the FastRaceShop.com 10 question, 10 second segment. Please go to FastRaceShop.com, type in Lefty 2019, and you get 10% off your order. You guys know who Fast Race Shop is because I've been telling you all this time. They got awesome trinkets and bits for your cars to bling your car to make it look good. Great shock caps and awesome honeycombed bladders. So you ready for this, Mark?
Yep.
Okay, question 1. Motocross cycling.
Only one more. It's only one answer, right? One
yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Or, one of quick answers. You can do it as.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Yeah.
I know that I see from Facebook that you're avid into motocross, cycling, and RC. Which 2 of these would you remove? If you had to remove 2, which would they be from your life?
Remove 2?
Yeah, if you only had to stick with one of those three hobbies, what would you stick with?
I would probably keep cycling and remove motocross and RC. The reason is cycling is just a lot more of a healthier sport.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 2, if you could change one thing in RC right now, what would it be?
Get rid of the million sponsored people.
Okay. Saxton, Degani, Bradley, or Courts, which one will take you out for the win?
Oh, it's a no-brainer. And if anyone answered this with a different name, they should be shot. Courts.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody says Saxton used to take guys out.
Oh, no. Courts.
Okay.
Courts.
All right. So I know you don't know too much about RCGP, but basically it's like 2-man teams. So if you had an RC company and you was going to enter a team in RCGP, what 2 drivers, past or present, would they be? Which 2 drivers would you put in there?
I would say an RCGP just for 8 scale.
Yeah, it's just rate scale and it's just a 2-man team.
I'm going to go with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And can I pick myself?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Myself and let's see. Yeah, I'll go with Saxton. I'll pick Saxton.
All right, cool. Number 5. If you did not live in America, where would you be living?
Oh my gosh. Why are these questions so hard? Mexico.
Mexico. Yes, I like
I have
Modelo's.
There's too many good choices.
Modelo's and tacos. You can't go wrong with that.
Exactly. And I love Mexican food. So.
Yeah. Number 6, should gas truck come back?
No.
Okay. Number 7, what class of RC would you like to see Ryan focus on?
8 scale.
Okay, and number 8, name one RC track you wish still existed.
Hot tracks.
Number 9, who is the best RC driver ever that never really made it?
When you say made it,
Like became a professional and won and basically done what you guys done. There's lots of guys that have had talent, but there's lots of guys that haven't fulfilled that talent. Who was the most talented guy that never made it?
I would say, I mean, not that this person was, I mean, granted, he was super talented, but I think he really worked hard. It would have to be Chad Bradley.
Yeah.
He worked really hard. He did a lot of testing and practicing, and he just never got that big win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I could say that. I would agree with that. And number 10, the best 8-scale car you've ever had. You've ever raced.
I mean, yeah, Kyosho.
Really? Which one?
Well, I mean, of course, my World's car. I mean, you go back to then, and I mean, without that car, I can't win the world. So that has to be the best car.
Okay. Now, I have a few questions from some of our followers on our Facebook page. So I'm going to just go through them really quick. So I know you got to get home. You want to relax. Okay. Aaron Klein says, your biggest rival of all time?
Brian Kinwald.
Okay. Justin Mann says, ask me to ask you about blowing chunks in my Rhino.
Oh, that was his fault. No, he took me on a ride Thanksgiving when we were at the desert, and yeah, I had too much to drink, and he finished me off.
Mick Craddock asked about skateboarding at his house. Oh God, that probably don't sound too good. Like it happened.
So I went over to England to do AK did a weekend event in England where AK had a control tire. It was just more of a low key, but a lot of top racers went. They used a control tire for 8 scale. And then the following, after that event was over, I spent a week and I traveled to a couple different tracks, working on carpet and AstroTurf tires for AK. And during that time I was there, I was staying with Mick and Michelle at their house, and they tried to poison me one night drinking, and they did a good job. And then I tried to ride a skateboard down their stairs in the backyard.
Oh, that couldn't have ended too good. You must have felt that in the morning.
No, yeah, my head hurt.
Yeah. Patrick Matthew Dillon Jr., do you still have your world's winning car hanging on a wall or in a trophy case? He actually has 2 questions. And he goes, was the Magnesium Head OS motor your favorite motor of all time?
The engine was, but not the Magnesium Head.
Okay. S.J. Shatler, who's a JQ guy over in the UK, he says, if you was going to spend your own money on a car, what would you buy right now?
On a real car?
No, on an 8-scale car.
No, RC car.
Yeah.
On an 8-scale car. I'd say the Associated car.
Yeah.
You know, I built it. Quality is really good. The ease of maintenance is really nice. And those are all things that you need to consider when you purchase a car. So I think Associated did a really good job on their 8-scope car.
Yeah. Quick access diffs and whatnot. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Last question. Ken Spencer, do pros modify their engines or do they run them straight out of the box? I'm guessing he's asking if there are modified engines for pro guys.
No, I mean, the stuff that we get, the sponsored guys get from OS, my stuff came directly from Japan, and it didn't even come broke in. They send you pretty much the same stuff they're sending everyone else, just you're breaking it in maybe different than the next guy. So
yeah,
it's all stuff you can get off the shelf.
Cool. Well, man, I appreciate your time. Are you going to get down and watch Ryan race live this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to get down there on Sunday and cheer him on, and hopefully he can make it into the final. There's a lot of fast guys in that open class, but that's how you get faster. Yeah,
for sure. He's putting in the work. Too bad him and Max can't have another rematch this year from DNC. They actually it was so funny watching them. Like, they just finished racing and they were like playing around in the pits afterwards. Like, I was like, so crazy. I wish we could all be kids again like that, So
yeah.
But thank you for your time, bud. It was actually very interesting to talk to you. I've never talked to you before. I'm glad we got to hear your side of the AKA debacle. I guess I'll call that. And you have a good weekend. And I wish Ryan really good luck at Reedy this weekend.
Yeah, Keenan, I really appreciate you allowing me to come on your show and go over the different subjects and bring back a lot of these memories, both good and bad.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, man. Truly.
Good.
Okay, well, I'll probably see you at DNC, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll stop by and I'll say hi.
All right, have a good evening. Thank you for.
Maybe I'll drive a van, one of our $200,000 vans out there.
That would be cool. I would. It probably need some heating or air conditioning at some point. So.
Yeah, it's got it.
I gotta drive the janky JQ van from the from the East Coast to California in a couple of weeks. So that's gonna be fun.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
All right. Thank you for your time and have a good weekend.
All right, Keenan.
Okay. Bye-bye.